Fellow Biafrans, brothers and sisters, good evening. You're welcome to the program. My name is Ikem Patrick DK, and we have our wonderful guest here, Professor Dyfed Lloyd Servant, and you are all welcome to Biafra Television. And I want to encourage you to please help us share this live transmission. Invite your friends because there's a lot to learn. We have a special guest, and we can't afford to let this today's interesting program go without taking something home with us. So, Professor, good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for the introduction.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. It's my pleasure to have you, and you are live on BTV, and I want you to welcome Biafrans.
Hello to all Biafrans, including this one here.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Professor, can you please, I know I've given out your name. The publicity is out there, but notwithstanding, I would like you to introduce yourself formally, give us a little background about yourself, so that people who are following us will be able to have a full glance of your personality and your profession and who you are as a person.
Okay. First of all, I'm Welsh. My language is called Cymraeg. So English is my second language, not my first language, which most people don't realize there are other languages and other cultures in the UK, not just English. I grew up on a small sheep farm in the middle of nowhere. But I was lucky enough to go to a school where the teachers wanted us to advance. So from that rural background, I went to university in London where I did my PhD. Then I went to, where I did my degree. Then I went to Cambridge to do my PhD. I went back home to do my postdoc. So I was still in science. And then I did computer programming for a while. So my background is kind of physics, biology, and computer programming, which is a bit weird. After that, I joined a major pharma in the UK. And from there, I came to South Africa to work on sugarcane. So I've got a bit of a mixed background, which means I kind of worked on the Human Genome Project. I've worked on kind of big projects as well. And I'm also interested in linguistics and where human languages come from. That's kind of my hobby.
Thank you very much, Professor. So you are not a kebab seller.
No.
If I may, with respect, people who sell restaurants and all of that, because we've seen situations where we see detractors say, "Oh, they just brought a one kebab seller on the street," and
I love kebabs, but
so it's my pleasure. Professor, thank you very much. You're welcome to the program once more. I learned you are an ardent follower of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of IPOB, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra. Can you hear me?
Sorry, I missed that piece.
Okay. Yes, I said I learned you an ardent follower of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of IPOB, that you follow the messages of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of IPOB.
Definitely, he is an intelligent, erudite person, and what he's saying has impact and meaning for today. So how can you not?
So you obviously, it's in some ways you also his student because you learn from him.
Well, to be a scientist means you're always a student. You're always trying to learn new things.
Beautiful. From what you've seen so far, how do you judge his performance? You followed him for years now, and I think you're in a better position to give an insight on, his performance in the struggle for Biafra restoration. How do you judge his performance so far?
That's actually a very hard question. As a follower of Gandhi. I think he's kind of got a very Gandhi-esque approach and message. So I'm very much think that's the right way to go about it. It may not be the only way, but in a humanist way, I think that's probably is the best way.
Okay, so obviously, it's his. Your judgment is positive then on his part.
Yes, oh, definitely, yes.
Yeah, because we've seen a lot of critics, a lot of people, you know, condemn him. A lot of people said, "Oh, he's too harsh. He's not getting it right," and stuff like that. So it's also very important that
that's a hard one again. The problem is you need to bring up the lens of truth to your own people so they see what their own problems are. We all have problems in our own cultures, and you need to see that. But also, I'm a proponent of nonviolence, and that's partly cultural in my own aspect, and he's doing that as well. He's trying to bring his people forward and trying to advance the situation and status of Biafra in all the international fora. And you can't do that through violence.
Okay, beautiful. Now we're going to talk about, you are Welsh.
Yes.
You are Welsh. And you know that Nigeria have also relationship with the British. And from what I learned, the Welsh have a relationship with the British, like you told me. So can you give us a little light about the relationship, the Welsh relationship with the British, with England?
Okay, we were the original British. The word British comes from Brython, which is our original name for ourselves. The Romans invaded 2,000 years ago. The Anglo-Saxons, the forerunners of the modern English, invaded 1,500 years ago. They kind of kicked us out of England, and we were forced to go into Scotland and into Wales and into Cumbria. Now, our name for ourselves is actually Cymru, which means the compatriots. The term Welsh is actually not very nice. It means a combination of foreigner and slave in English. So I don't actually like the term Welsh myself. So basically, we were the original Britons, but the Anglo-Saxon, there was something called the Yellow Death, which happened about 1,700 years ago, and that reduced our population dramatically. And it's because we were one of the few peoples in Western Europe that still had contact with the Mediterranean and the East and the Christianity of Constantinople. And that brought the disease to Britain. And half our population died, which allowed the Anglo-Saxons to come in. Now, in Anglo-Saxon law, basically, if you're not Anglo-Saxon speaking or basically English speaking, then they can put taxes on you to reduce the number of your population. They basically killed off as many of the men as they could and married the women in England. And so in England, it's very weird when you look at the genetics now. All the male genetics is from Germany, whereas the female genetics is British. Now, in Wales, we actually have the markers for the original indigenous European populations. You only get that in the Basque Country in France and Spain, in Wales and in Eastern Ireland. So basically, we're the original Europeans who came back to Europe after the end of the last ice age, about 8,000 years ago. So not only we're the original British, we're also the original Europeans.
So how did the British actually invaded your land then?
They did. Certainly in England, they took away all our land, and we had to escape to the fringes of Britain. Over the kind of 1,500 years subsequent to that, they tried to destroy our language, they destroyed our culture, they took all our land away from us. My father was the first generation in Wales to be able to buy our land back from the English. Not to get it back, to buy it back. He was the first generation where we could actually go to the courts in our own language. My brother, who was also a scientist, the first generation of scientists to be able to teach sciences in our own natural language, in Welsh. So basically, all colonialists need to learn to be colonialists somehow, somewhere. And the English learned from us and from the Irish. They try to dominate and destroy our cultures. We're still around, but they try to do it. And they've been doing it for 1,500 years. And it's only in the past 20, 30 years where we've started to get our own rights back.
Just recently. Just recently.
Just recently. It started in my own, in my father's generation. It's continuing now in my brother's generation.
You know, so you know the British, because I've been able to go through, I've been able to do some research, and I found out that the Welsh are the first British colonies. They were the first to be colonized by the British, if I'm right.
We are the first peoples to be colonized by England. Because they were foreigners, they wanted to assume our name for ourselves and breath on the British to give themselves legitimacy, even though they had no legitimacy. They're foreigners. And now they think with this white supremacy nonsense that they're the British and everybody else are foreigners.
So they took over they absorbed your culture.
Yes.
You know, so
they've been doing it for so many others subsequently.
Yes, yeah, because today my name is Patrick, and Patrick is English, but we are not originally English. You understand what I'm saying? No. They come into your land and they give you a name.
Yeah, my generation, my name now is Welsh. It means God of mead or God of drunkenness, literally. But I'm the first generation of Welsh people to start getting our own first language back, so first names back. I would never use my surname because the surnames are something the English gave us. We don't have surnames, we have patronymics. So our surname is basically the name of your father. So I'm actually Dyfed ap Thomas. But the English has forced surnames on us. We don't use them.
So basically you are an oppressed person by the English.
Yes.
You are also oppressed.
Yes.
And you have okay, let's because you know the British colonized Nigeria and they gave the name Nigeria, and you know there is this tactics of divide and rule that was set in to be able to you know, divide the people and have control over them. Did the Welsh people suffer the same as you had the same experience or not?
Well, that kind of started with us. We had our own leaders, we had our own princes, our own kings, but the English demoted them to princes who were subservient to the English king. And because of, we are actually, all the peoples who the English couldn't oppress came to Wales to come. That's why we call ourselves compatriots, because we were different tribes. We were forced together to become one nation.
You were forced, different tribes forced together to become one nation.
It was either go to Wales and become one nation or get killed.
So it is a natural tactics to bring people of different cultures together and merge them together to form a nation.
Yes, we were all separate tribes. So there were about 30 tribes in the UK before the English came. Now, after the English came, they took over the land. So everybody who wanted to be free had to move westwards, and kept on moving westwards until the final border between Wales and England was established. We were not one people, we were different tribes. And the only way to handle that was to effectively force the different tribes to become one nation.
Quite interesting.
And we still want one nation in many ways. We still had local princes, local kings. And it's only just about 800 years ago that we united under one king. But then the English killed him. So that unity couldn't happen.
Okay, so
we've had no king, no real leader.
Okay, now I want to ask you, because you've been to Nigeria.
Yes, I have. There's only one Christmas. But I actually went to marry my wife here.
Okay, what was your experience?
It's a very populous country. The people were fantastic. I have to admit, the people were fantastic. The food was fabulous, but the infrastructure was terrible.
And when you went, what were the things you thought would have been done different from the little period you spent there? What were the things you thought would have been done differently? I said, from the structure that you saw on the ground, what were the things you thought would have been done differently?
Nigeria is oil rich. Nigeria should be as developed and as wealthy as Norway. The oil money should have been invested in the country and in the people. Nigerians are industrious, but there is no industrial base. And that, again, that's part of the government's problem. Nigeria should be probably the most advanced country in Africa, but it's not. Based on the people were lovely. And I was just so sad.
Okay, you've lived in South Africa for a long time now.
Yeah, we've been here for 10 years now.
Oh, you've been in South Africa for a decade.
Sorry, 10 years. 10 years.
7 years.
7 years.
Yeah.
Okay, and you know the apartheid. Are you conversant with the apartheid experience, the apartheid story of the South Africans?
I went to university in London in the 1980s, and I went to Nelson Mandela Hall. That was our meeting place. I used to go out and protest outside the South African embassy. So yes, I know the apartheid regime, and I was totally against it in the 80s. Okay,
so from your personal observation, we know about the struggle for liberation, the struggle by the South African, the indigenous people to liberate themselves from the apartheid regime. How do you, in your personal observation, what are the good things that have been done in South Africa at the time that we are not doing in the struggle for Biafran restoration today? If there is any,
definitely the rule of law. South Africa is based on the rule of law. The problem I have, it's the same problem as in America now. Any country that's been institutionally racist remains racist for a long time after, and it's very hard to get rid of that. White privilege is still a reality here. The problem is now that there's a black middle class who in some ways don't want everybody else to advance, and that's something that's really against my culture. Well, Welsh is a socialist culture. UK has national health, it has national insurance, all that because of Welsh politicians after the Second World War. If it wasn't for Welsh politicians, we wouldn't have that in the UK. And that's kind of really a deep-rooted part of my culture. Here, the health system is only for the rich. So many things are only for the rich. It needs to be a far more equal society.
Okay, when you speak and when people see you, they believe you are British. A lot of people who doesn't know, from explanation you've made so far, most of the time people come in the middle of the program, they're confused because they look at you as a British, but they don't know that you are also oppressed based on who you are and where you come from. That Britain is an occupational force against your own people.
Yeah. Britain is a mix of nations. The Irish and Welsh have been oppressed. The North Scottish, who spoke their own language, Scots Gaelics, have been oppressed. It's the English and the Southern Scots who developed the imperial system. That's why I don't like the British Empire as a name. It's actually the Anglo-Scottish Empire, because the rest of us weren't even allowed to be involved. We were farming at home. We were forced to produce the food for the empire locally.
So you were made.
The empire actually had nothing to do with us. We weren't even allowed to be involved.
So,
our language was. Sorry.
Your people were made slaves.
Effectively, yes. And it's actually what one of the meanings of Welsh is slave.
Now, there is a question. There is a question I want to direct to you, and it's a very, very important question. I've asked that question before, but maybe you haven't answered that question the way I feel satisfied. So I'm going to bring it back again. Now, you are conversant with the struggle for Biafran restoration.
Yeah. Sorry, I missed the last part there again.
Okay, you said I asked, are you conversant? You're conversant with the Biafra struggle, right?
Yes, I actually came to know about Biafra a long time ago from my parents because of the Biafra War. They were really into the various countries who were struggling to get their own independence. And they've been telling me years and years ago, Biafra is like us.
And you've read some history about the Igbo people.
Yeah, I try and keep up. Obviously, it's a huge field to try and keep up properly, but I do try and keep up.
Okay, and now we are in the struggle for Biafra restoration, and now comparing it with the apartheid, the struggle for the South African apartheid liberation. Let me use that word. How do we because when whatever is happening today, I believe in the struggle for Biafra restoration have also gone through, other people have gone through the experience. So how do we compare the South Africa struggle with the Biafran struggle? In terms of, if I may ask you, during the South African struggle, were there killings? Were the people killed?
Yes. Basically, the police and the military were an arm of the white minority government, and they kill people, lots of people.
Okay, I want to ask you another question. Were the people imprisoned? Were the South African, the indigenous South Africans imprisoned during the struggle, the apartheid struggle?
That depends on what you mean by indigenous South Africans.
Okay.
That's another hard question. The Khoisan, who are the true indigenous South Africans, have been beaten up by everybody, and they're still ignored by the government today. Everybody else are incomers at different stages. So the true indigenous people are the Khoisan, but they have almost no rights. Their language is not even almost not recognized. So they're still, even though it's black majority rule here in South Africa, it's still the rule of the non-indigens, non-true indigens. I know your situation in Biafra is totally different from that, because you are true indigens in West Africa. But the problem is the indigenous people face trouble from anybody who's not indigenous, because the people who are not indigenous want to prove themselves indigenous. So they will not allow rights to the true indigenous. And that's definitely an issue in South Africa. There's one that's not really raised properly.
Okay, so, but
that's a big difference between the South African situation and your situation.
Okay, but during the South Africa struggle, were people put into prisons? Did people face hunger? Did people face arrest and hardship and different kind of things during this apartheid struggle?
From the 1950s, with the segregation laws and all that, if you are not basically Germanic, is what I say, not rather than white, you are shifted out to where you lived. You're moved to different areas where you had no economic power. And those who then began the struggle obviously faced opposition because they were trying to destroy the power base of the South African whites. And that continued well into the start of the 90s. So that's a 60-year struggle.
Okay, but at the end of the day, there was, as the people were being imprisoned, they were being slaughtered, they were being killed, they were facing hardship. Uh, they, were they persistent in the struggle? I'm talking about the South African part, the apartheid struggle.
Obviously, the ANC played a very big part in here. And the ANC was the voice of South Africa outside South Africa. And there were South African emigres all over the world. And they played a big part in teaching people, especially students like me during the 80s, what was going on in South Africa and why it was so wrong. And this definitely made us try and step up to support the South African struggle. So I think that was a big thing for South Africa. And I think it's one of the things that eventually made the white government cave. Because you can't stand up to this kind of international support in the end.
So at the end of the day, the South Africans were able to succeed in the struggle because of their consistency and their persistence and continuous, without giving up, despite all the killings and all the imprisonment and
Yeah, they definitely never gave up. If something, they stepped up to the next level to try and educate people outside South Africa what was really happening here.
So now, there is a question I want to ask you. And you said you are conversant with the Biafra struggle. What are the things you think personally we need to do more in the struggle for Biafra?
We definitely need more engagement with people outside, because at the moment the killings going on in Biafra, unless you're involved and are reading up, nobody really knows about it.
So the indigenous people of Biafra need more engagement with the international community.
Yes, and with the various indigenous communities as well, because there are several fora where indigenous peoples can come together, and that's one of the places where the information about Biafra can be built up.
Okay, during the South Africa struggle, were there some South Africans who I presume as the black South African, were there saboteurs among them?
Of course.
They killed each other.
Yeah, there are always people who want to be in with whoever they perceive as being in power at the time for their own enrichment. And that's always a problem. But if the story of what's really going on goes out there, then you can see these people for what they really are. They're not supporters of indigenous peoples. They're not supporters of a struggle for freedom that should be supported.
So even though there are people who are oppressed, but they still sabotage the struggle for their own personal freedom. They sabotage their own struggle for their own personal interest against the general interest of everybody.
In any struggle for freedom, and you only have to go back to look at the French in the Second World War, fifth columnists trying to sabotage that are always a problem.
Okay. It's very, very important that we point some light, because when you look at struggle for freedom, challenges always come with it. A lot of challenges, a lot of killings. What is happening today in Nigeria? We've seen the Fulani herdsmen. Have you heard about the Fulani herdsmen?
Yes.
And what do you know about the Fulani herdsmen?
Okay. They, in terms of origins, they probably started somewhere around Senegal. They naturally travel along the Sahel border, herding their cattle and their sheep. But now they're trying to invade into Biafra land and other regions of Nigeria to get better grazing land. And they do this by aggression.
So, because we've seen them, a lot of killings and maimings, but unfortunately, there is this denial. There is this denial, even by the government, you know, feigning ignorance of the activities of these herdsmen. And do we say that the government is, you know, just pretending that these issues are not there, or they are trying to cover up? From your own personal opinion and observation, is it the kind? Yes,
I think it's a combination of both. First of all, they're trying to ignore it, but also there does seem to be a majority Islamic faction within the current government who are supporting these Fulani husband to try and get more land for the Muslim peoples in Nigeria, especially the northern Muslims, the Aus and the Fulani. It's kind of a slice and dice approach to gain more power in Nigeria.
So I know that I don't need to ask you if you support Biafra struggle. I don't need to ask you because I know on whose side you are.
Any people who have a legitimate claim to independence should get independence.
So you mean that the Biafran people, okay, you mean that the Biafran people have a right to independence?
Definitely. You are a nation within Nigeria. You should have the right to independence.
So, how do you think what we should do more to help ourselves? Because we've talked about engagement with international communities, and as you know, we have a lot of interest in Biafra land. We have a lot of interest in the region because of a lot of multinational companies from different countries. Who knows automatically that when the status quo changes, things are not going to remain the same? How do we handle this situation? How do we lobby and engage people to understand that they can also have a fair deal if Biafra comes?
Yeah, that's a huge question. I'm not sure anybody actually has an answer yet. Obviously, engaging with the international fora, getting Biafra recognized not as a country, but as a potential country by the UN. But there are other issues there because the US, Russia, probably even the UK is not going to easily support that. Engaging with non-governmental organizations. Also, making clear that the Nigerian government and Nigerian power cannot apply to Biafra. Disengaging with Nigeria, not supporting elections, that kind of thing.
So you've heard about the election boycott?
Yes, and I think that's a really good step.
Okay, now, because I remember when the leader of IPOB brought up the election boycott proposal, there were a lot of resistance. People, I wouldn't say a lot, but some people resisted. They felt they could bring the changes by vote. And today we are back to square one. Let me ask you this question: if everybody
the elections are not free and fair anyway. I was seeing ballot boxes being thrown away. So if the election is rigged in the first place, why engage?
Now, what I'm asking you, if everybody had boycotted the election, what do you think would have happened?
Well, in effect, I would say that would be effectively a vote by everybody for a free Biafra.
So let's see that it was an opportunity for a mock referendum.
Yeah, effectively, it was a chance for a referendum without holding a referendum, if you see what I mean. The Biafran people have said Nigerian election is not valid. It doesn't apply to us. We have not engaged with it at all.
So
now they're trying to impose Nigerian laws on us without any valid claim to do so, because we did not vote for anybody.
So in that regards, we are giving 100% to the leader of IPOB, who said boycott election, and I mean, he was right.
Yes. He could have then taken that to the UN, to other bodies, saying, see, Nigeria is imposing their rule on us. We did not want them.
So the election boycott at some level was successful. Some few people came out and voted. Others, a large majority didn't vote. And we are still in the struggle. Yeah. Now, do you advise, let me ask you this question. Do you advise or do you encourage a future election boycott, or do we take a different strategy?
Personally, I'd say you don't want to engage with the Nigerian government. So future election boycotts, yes. Anything you can do to show that the Nigerian government is illegitimate.
Okay. We see Nigeria is going to be 60 years in October 1st. And there is this order for everybody to sit at home.
Yeah.
Even though it's going to be a holiday anyway, but the leader of IPOB and IPOB leadership have ordered the people of Biafra and other regions who feel oppressed to sit at home, not to go out, to just stay indoors. Do you still see that as a good strategy to register your grievances, to register your protest?
Yeah, I would say so, yes. I know politically it won't make much difference, but it will register especially outside in people's minds. Okay, these guys do not believe in Nigeria. They do not want to engage with Nigeria. I think it's also presenting it that way to outside bodies.
So, the October 1st sit at home is also another demonstration of the desire to show the world that you don't want to participate in anything Nigerian.
Yes, exactly.
Beautiful. So it shows that so far the strategies of IPOB and the leader of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is in the right direction. Is that what you are saying?
Yeah, it's the right direction for the least deaths. If you could tomorrow declare yourself independent and close all the borders, but then the Nigerian army would come in and invade. So how do you get a free Biafra whilst also protecting the people?
So between 1967 and 1970, Biafra was declared, and the Nigerian troop came into Biafra land, and the war started. And
yeah,
we wouldn't want to go through that process again by making that declaration and going into another war. Definitely, because if we say we are going to declare Biafra and create the boundary by ourselves, then we are going to need a lot of resources to protect our citizens. That is very, very obvious. Now we want to sit on a table to discuss how we can get our freedom. And the Nigerian government is not giving consent to that. The indigenous people of Biafra are requesting for a referendum, to be able to give opportunity to everybody to vote and express their feelings through that vote. And the Nigerian government is not giving that possibility either.
But the Nigerian government knows what the answer will be.
Okay. You said
it's not going to be in their favor.
So Nigeria knows that nobody want to be a Nigerian anyway.
Yeah. The problem is, unfortunately for Biafra, the Nigerian government is totally dependent on oil. That's their only revenue source. If there was no oil, then I don't think there'd be much less problem. So the question is, in 10 years, oil will not be that important to the world. Electric vehicles will have taken over. Oil prices will fall. So the question is, how long are you prepared to struggle for?
So are we going to wait until the oil dries up before we talk?
Well, it's not the oil drying up. It's actually the usage of oil by the rest of the world will tail off in 10 years.
Yes, I know. That means the oil wouldn't be relevant any longer.
Yeah, exactly. There's only a 10-year lifespan now where oil is going to be relevant.
So it means that we have to wait till 10 years when the oil is no longer relevant before we get our independence. So what do you encourage us to keep pushing, that even before the oil becomes irrelevant, we might be able to get our freedom?
Well, we've seen just now with the coronavirus issues, the amount of oil used by the world has dropped dramatically. The amount of revenue from the Nigerian government has collapsed. So when oil is no longer relevant, then the issue of Biafra is also in one way no longer relevant. The problem is, are you willing to wait 10 years? Or 15 years at the outside? And I don't think you can. Not for the Biafran people. People get bored of these issues. If you want Biafra, you need to keep pushing.
Okay, now I would like to take some questions from. If you have any question, feel free to post your question. I'm going to take some questions from the comment section. And somebody said, we have NJ Onyamechi Donato said, please ask him please ask him, how can Biafra engage with the UN to present their case?
Make sure Trump doesn't win the next election.
I don't understand.
Okay. I think if there's a Democrat leadership in the US after the forthcoming presidential election, it'll be much easier to engage with the US. Trump doesn't care.
But you know, the Biafran people believe so much in Donald Trump, and we are pushing for Donald Trump because we've been able to engage the Donald Trump administration to some extent, and we believe Donald Trump, cares about the indigenous people. Even more, yes.
I would say personally, Donald Trump doesn't care about the indigenous people, but he would prefer a Christian government in Nigeria.
Okay, when we look at how this present government of I don't know, Buhari or Buhari or okay, let's say the government of Buhari, because we believe that he is the face that we see, even though there's a lot of doubt about the personality, from what we know, Buhari, from what we know, is not there presently. That he died some time ago, but with a double body kind of arrangement. Okay, let's just assume that we know the role the Democratic Party played for the late Buhari to come to power.
Yeah, I've been looking at some of the pictures from my wife, and I agree with you. It's not Buhari anymore. It's a cousin or a relative
or something.
or something.
So you are of the opinion that the person in the seat of power is not Buhari. Do you believe in that, or you are only
Nigeria is no longer legitimate?
Or you are only saying it because everybody is saying it?
No, my wife actually asked me to look at the pictures forensically. The shape of the ear has changed. The shape of the scar on his chin has changed. They've been added cosmetically. They're not natural.
So automatically the world knows that Buhari is not the person we see every day.
Well, I think most people believe what they're told. So you actually have to look at it personally and compare the old pictures with the new pictures and decide for yourself. Most people won't do that. They'll just accept what they're told.
That's quite interesting, because why it's interesting is because there are still a lot of people who believe that the person sitting down there is Buhari.
He's younger. He has different ear shapes. The scar on his chin is different. It's not him. So we are giving the leader of IPOB another mark. Imagine now the camera another mark. Okay, now let's move on. I want to take some questions from the comment section. We've agreed that Buhari is not the person there, and the name have been given to him, Jubril, and let's just take it like that, because we have a lot of evidence, a lot of pictures, and a lot of even activities that he cannot even appear in public, you know. Yeah. And he has no education. He can be easily manipulated.
Wonderful. Okay, now there is somebody who said, tell him that we are not interested in oil. Obama and Democrats are the people who imposed Buhari to Nigeria. So there is this, because we've been talking about Donald Trump's position when it comes to the issue of indigenous people and Biafrans especially. There is, we all know the role that the Democratic Party plays to bring APC to power. And we don't, the indigenous people of Biafra do not trust the Democratic Party to give us the possibility.
First of all, I would say he's not democratic. There's a cabal, and they're the ones in charge. And no matter who you vote for, the government will always win, and that's the cabal working in the background. So that there is no true democracy here.
So at the end of the day, whether Trump wins or loses, there's not going to be much of a difference. Is that what you're saying?
It's the old saying, no matter who you vote for, the government always wins. And unfortunately, in Nigeria, you're not electing a new government. You're just electing faces that the cabal can use to look out to the people.
No, we are talking about the U.S. election now. I'm talking about the U.S. election. Right. Yes, we are talking about the U.S. election, and we believe that we personally, I believe that Donald Trump is somebody. If the indigenous people of Biafra present their case, and not just presenting their case, we've seen the administration of Donald Trump also coming out to condemn the killing of Christians, and which is, something we never saw during Obama period.
Okay, the advantage you potentially have in Trump is that he's so anti-Islam, he will support anybody who will try and overcome Islam in their country. Personally, I don't like the man. I don't like what he's done to the American justice system. I have many reasons for not liking Trump. But for Biafra, Trump might actually be a good thing.
Beautiful, because that is the perception of every Biafran, and we've seen also some of the moves he has made speaking to the imposter in Aso Rock face to face, asking him, why are you killing Christians and all that. I don't think any democratic president will have that kind of courage to ask such a question.
I think they all should, but you're right, most of them won't. They're politicians and they're weak and they don't want to bring up these issues.
Okay. So, I want to see if I can take one or two questions from the comment section. And I encourage people to bring up very interesting questions because we'll be rounding up. We have Professor Dyfed Lloyd Servant, who is our guest on this show, Biafran Resonating, and he has given us insight to experience of the Welsh people, where he comes from, the experience of the South African struggle. He has been able to point out to the fact that the Biafran struggle is not really different from every other struggle around the world, where people were imprisoned, killed, starvation and hunger. We are also facing similar kind of situation. So, but it took the persistence of the people to get to the destination. So I'm going to see if I can take another question. Okay, we have Eze Bunwa Osunwa Jr. Ask him why the West doesn't want Africa to have true independence. Somebody is asking, why is it that the Western world doesn't want Africa to have true independence?
If you want a glib answer, the glib answer is, you all wanted independence. We gave you independence. Now it's your problem. There's also this African attitude to the West. If everything is going fine, you don't want the West to be involved. If there's a war, then you want France or UK or whoever to come in and solve it. And you can't have it both ways.
So, but I personally believe that we've given a lot to the West, to the Western world. In fact, they've taken everything from Africa.
I know, but then again, I'd say we're in the same position. They stole our trees, they stole our copper, they stole our iron. All our natural resources disappeared. The only natural resource we have now is in our heads.
Yes. So automatically you are another African as well, because your people faced what you are facing today. You are like an African as well.
And this problem is not just an African problem; it's a problem of indigenous people all over the world. Look at the Native Americans. Look at the Inuit. Now, Native peoples have been exploited and their resources have been taken for centuries, actually millennia. And this is not just a uniquely African problem. The question is, how do you raise above it? You can't rely on the European powers, on the Germanic powers to help you. You have to help yourself. How do you do it? And we did it by education. And that's why I say education, that's the first step to fixing things. Once you have an educated populace, they will not trust their politicians anymore. They will not trust their pastors. They will think for themselves. If you have the education, you can travel anywhere in the world to apply that education.
So, Professor, from what you're saying, for the past roughly, let me say from 2012 to today, we've seen the leader of IPOB keep on educating the people.
Yeah.
How do you assess his level of progress in terms of educating the people? The level of progress he has made over the years educating the people?
I think the problem is he's an educated man. And when talking to other educated people, they take it on board. How do you bring the rest of the population with you? That's the question.
So
I don't have an easy answer for that.
Yes, but Professor, do you know that the major followers, the massive followers of the leader of IPOB are people with the middle class kind of education, because you have a lot. Yes.
Well, they're the dangerous ones. They're the ones the French Revolution killed. They're the ones the Russian Revolution killed, because they're the ones who can change things. So if you bring those along with you, that is a fantastic step.
Beautiful. So, we would accept that the leader of IPOB have been able to reach the rightful class of people who can understand him, in terms of communication.
Yeah, they're the ones who once they rise up can change everything.
So, like, we are called the riffraffs and things like that. We are called the riffraffs. They said we are, a lot of funny names are given to us. But when you look at it, you find out that those with the average education seem to connect more than those who feel they know better.
Yeah, that's fantastic, because the majority of people lie in that band. And once they change their minds, they will convince other people.
Beautiful. Professor Dyfed Lloyd, it is my pleasure to have you on this program.
It's been fantastic.
Yes, the interaction has been very wonderful, and I'm happy you're here. And maybe in the future, if there is need, I would like to bring you back. And will you be available to always be here to talk to us?
This would be fantastic.
Thank you very much, Professor. It's my pleasure to have you. And I want to say thank you, our viewers. You joined me. My name is Patrick DK, and we have our guest, Professor Dyfed Lloyd, and he has been able to give us, throw more light on some of the experiences, personal experiences, experiences traveling, also coming to Nigeria, and things he saw and things he feel need to change. And you have also been able to talk to us and tell us more about the things he has learned from the leader of IPOB. And it's my pleasure to have you, and I wish you a wonderful evening.
Thank you for having me, and a good evening to all your listeners.
Thank you very much.
Bye now.